Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Now, this week alone captured many of the pressures reshaping Europe's Ukraine and NATO security debate. Russia launched another massive attack on Kyiv. NATO allies split publicly over new aid commitments for Ukraine, and President Zelensky rejected proposals for partial or associate EU membership. Now, together, these developments point to a larger question about Europe's political unity, strategic endurance, and readiness for a potentially reduced U.S. role in the region. Joining us now is Stepan Rusyn, Program Coordinator at the Transatlantic Dialogue Center. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Morning. Thank you.
So I want to begin with a lot of these different things and moments, but right now, just the latest of what we've been hearing from Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, also sharing that he's had a chat with Sergei Lavrov of Russia, where Lavrov warns there would be more strikes, systematic strikes potentially, decision-making centers in Ukraine. What do you make of his dialogue there with and the warning that comes with it?
This Russian threats to target decision-making centers and military objects in Kyiv, they have been told already for more than 4 years, and it's just the regular tactics of Russian conducting war, and I don't expect that anything will change radically. The Russian decision to target objects in Kyiv, it does not depend on actions of Ukraine or on the decisions of the Russian foreign minister. It mostly depends on the Russian capability to do it. So as long as they can produce the missiles and drones and they have enough of them and stockpile to launch an attack, they will launch an attack. So from Ukrainian calculus, nothing has changed after this phone call between Rubio and Lavrov, and the main issue is to make Ukraine prepared to build up air defense and have a supply of anti-ballistic missiles, and also to build up its own capabilities, for example, interceptor drones that have proved effective against Russian Shahed drones.
Mm-hmm. And also about what you're saying about being prepared, also Ukraine stepping up, being prepared all the time. I'm just curious about the latest comments that have come from NATO's chief, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and he basically proposed 0.25% of allies' GDP for that benchmark for actual Ukraine military aid. Now, that's been rejected by a few media outlets, including the likes of Italy, France, even the UK and Canada. So where's this idea going?
It's actually quite an old idea. It was first aired by Estonia already more than 2 years ago, and now it's very symptomatic that it already reached the level of the NATO Secretary General and was officially offered to the NATO member states. And the positive thing is that NATO Secretary General is really taking the issue of Ukraine's long-term perspectives seriously. As of now, of course, we did not get an official decline, and this information that circulates in the media, it's unofficial, including the name of those countries, although it's very likely that this is true. And from Ukrainian perspective, we of course understand that the countries you have mentioned, they have their own quite big fiscal problems, and it's difficult to make such a big commitment for long-term support of 0.25% of GDP. But where the window of opportunity remains is that all of the NATO allies committed to the spending target of 3.5% over next 10 years. And what still can be done is that military support to Ukraine can be counted as contribution to NATO's defense and deterrence. And in that case, in view of that commitment that they already taken, this is still possible. So I would not say that this rejection of this proposal by NATO Secretary General is a final say, and I expect that this talk will continue, and hopefully in a positive way for Ukraine and NATO.
But interesting, you pointed it out that this is sort of an older idea. You mentioned it was already proposed by the Estonians some time ago. But now seeing as well that we've had more, let's say, attention as we also raised the issue of that targeting going up, was defense spend by allies. So why exactly do you think he's putting this forward? I mean, it makes sense in terms of actually having this for Ukraine, but why push this idea now? And we know it's not fully rejected yet. This is just by some media outlets are getting info. But why has he put this on the table again right now, do you think?
It's most likely from the point of view of peace negotiation process that's not going as fast as many have hoped for, and there is an understanding that it's quite likely that this conflict between Ukraine and Russia will last for considerable amount of time. And from that perspective, and given that America, as long as Trump stays the president of the United States, will not be actively supporting Ukraine, this lies on the shoulders of the European allies. And to make this support sustainable and less dependent on the changing electoral cycles, and also to make Ukraine more confident that Ukraine can count on their allies in long term. I guess that's a good timing to at least start the debate, and I don't think there will be a decision by the next NATO summit in Ankara, but that will most likely be a topic in this year and maybe even the next year.
And also mentioning now Europe, let's talk about another area where Ukraine is in that process of trying to join the European Union. That is still a long road ahead. I'm just curious to get your sense. I think it was last week the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz proposed this idea of an associate EU membership, associate membership of something not quite full. Now that's been rejected by President Zelensky outright. And I think he said here, I'm just quoting, Ukraine's place in the EU must also be complete, full, and equal. So, first of all, what do you make of the actual proposal by the German Chancellor and now the rejection by the Ukrainians?
The motivation of the German Chancellor was mostly to offer to Ukraine something as an intermediary step between the full membership and the current candidate status. But in Ukraine, it was interpreted by the political leadership and partly by the think tank community as a way to stop the full membership process and to give this associate status to Ukraine, and then the negotiations will last that as long as they are already lasting with the Western Balkan states without concrete perspective for Ukraine. And therefore, that's why it was criticized by the Ukrainian president. The essence of the proposals is also mostly symbolical, although it was not the intention of the German side. It's about Ukraine joining the EU institutions in a role of observer and a gradual opening to the EU internal market to Ukraine. But the fear in Ukraine is that first, like giving Ukraine this status already means that Germany and other European countries spend some political capital on it, and it may stall the further the proper EU integration process of Ukraine. And that in that case, Ukraine will be decoupled from Moldova, which is much easier for the EU to integrate, and that also creates a risk that Moldova will be one step ahead of Ukraine. And also with the Western Balkan states, as Chancellor Merz's letter to the EU leaders also explicitly mentions the need to speed up the integration process of the Western Balkan states. So here Ukraine has the fear of missing out the sped up integration of other countries, and also there is a concern about the wording. Ukraine does not like associate membership wording. as we already have association agreements from 2014, and the Ukraine's kind of counter proposal is to maybe frame it in a different way, like exceeding membership. Or this may be less questionable from the point of view of Ukrainian population.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, do you sense in a way that this could be more practical, pragmatic in some form? I mean, we've talked so much about, or the Ukrainians have talked about accelerated membership. I mean, it's still many chapters open. These have to be negotiated, I believe, quite soon. These clusters will be opened also on the European side. So is there any, I know there's the fear of being in the waiting room too long, but is there any practical, pragmatic steps here? There's some sort of programs, I don't know, like part of the access to the single market. Could that maybe convince some leaders in Europe to maybe make it faster?
Now the issue partially is the opening of the negotiation clusters and negotiation of these benchmarks. And this is just partially political question, which till today was dependent on Hungarian veto, and based on the bilateral Ukrainian-Hungarian consultation process, we expect that by the end of this month, this veto will be lifted, and from political point of view, this process will continue as planned. From the more bureaucratic point of view, the problem is that all this processes, opening clusters, presenting benchmarks, evaluating benchmarks, it's quite long. So it may take weeks from one step to another step. And Ukraine's vision is that, yes, now when there are no political obstacles, at least in the issue of opening negotiation clusters, it's more a responsibility of the Brussels institutions to make it in a more, in a faster way. And things that take a few weeks can actually be done in a few days. Mm-hmm. And that's the main arguing point of Ukraine now. And as regards of the overall strategy, it's also Ukraine actively lobbying EU now to sign an accession treaty as soon as possible. No one talks about 2027 deadline already, but still it has to be done quick. And then the Ukrainian government believes that the process of ratification that follows the signing of the accession agreement gives the EU member states necessary leverages on Ukraine to negotiate the terms of opening of internal markets that will not harm European economies, on agriculture and EU budget and so on. But this idea has not yet sunk in the EU, and basically the letter of Chancellor Merz is the reaction to that idea of Ukrainians, and it looks like that's up to negotiations now, where Ukraine and EU can find the common ground.
All right, so giving us the list there, thank you so much. And also I think we'll have to say that in terms of the battlefield as well, Ukraine doing more also in drone warfare, so maybe that as an essence of a step also that could be a bigger role for Ukraine and Europe. Look, thank you so much. That was Stepan Rusyn there, Program Coordinator at the Transatlantic Dialogue Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.